King Demetrius to the nation of the Jews. Greetings. Since you have kept our agreement with us and continued your friendship with us and have not sided with our enemies, we have heard of it and rejoiced. And now continue to keep faith with us, and we will repay you with good for what you do for us. We'll grant you many immunities and give you gifts. And I now free you and exempt all Jews from the payment of tribute and soul tax and crown levies. And instead of collecting the third of the corn and half of the fruit of the trees that I should receive, I release them from this day and henceforth. I will not collect them from the land of Judah, or the 3 districts added to it from Samaria and Galilee, from this day and for all time. And let Jerusalem remember and her tithes and her revenues be holy and free from tax. I release also my control of the citadel in Jerusalem, and give it to the high priest, that he may station in it men of his own choice to guard it, and every one of the Jews taken captive from the land of Judah into any part of my kingdom I set free without payment, and let all officials cancel also the taxes on their cattle. And all the feasts and Sabbaths, and new moons and appointed days, and 3 days before a feast, and 3 days after a feast, let them all be days of immunity and release for all Jews who are in my kingdom. No one shall have authority to exact anything from them or annoy them about any matter. Let Jews be enrolled in the king's forces to the number of 30,000 men, and let maintenance be given to them that orders due to the forces of the king. Let some of them be stationed in the great strongholds of the king, and let some of them be put in positions of trust in the kingdom. Let their officers and leaders be of their own number, and let them live by their own laws, just as the king has commanded in the land of Judah. As for the 3 districts that have been added to Judea from the country of Samaria, let them be considered under one ruler, and obey no other authority but the high priest Ptolemy, and the land adjoining it I have given as a gift to the sanctuary in Jerusalem, to meet the necessary expenses of the sanctuary. I also grant 15,000 shekels of silver yearly out of the king's revenues from appropriate places, and all the additional funds that the government officials have not paid, as they did among the First Nations, they shall give from now on for the service of the temple. Moreover, the 5,000 shekels of silver that my officials have received every year from the income of the services of the temple, this too is cancelled, because it belongs to the priests who minister there. And whoever takes refuge in the temple, at the temple in Jerusalem, or in any of his precincts, because he owes money to the king or has any debt, let him be released and receive back all his property in my kingdom. Let the cost of rebuilding and restoring the structures of the sanctuary be paid from the revenues of the king, and let the cost of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem and fortifying it round about, and the cost of rebuilding the walls in Judea also be paid from the revenues of the king. Death of Demetrius. When Jonathan and the people heard these words, they did not believe or accept them, because they remembered the great wrongs Demetrius had done in Israel, and how he had greatly oppressed them. They favoured Alexander because he had been the first to speak peaceful words to them, and they remained his allies all his days. Now King Alexander assembled large forces and encamped opposite Demetrius. The kings met in battle. The army of Demetrius fled, and Alexander pursued him and defeated them. He pressed the battle strongly until the sun set, and Demetrius fell on that day. Treaty of Ptolemy and Alexander. Then Alexander sent ambassadors to King Ptolemy of Egypt with the following message: Since I have returned to my kingdom and have taken my seat on the throne of my fathers and established my rule, for I crushed Demetrius and gained control of our country, I met him in battle, and he and his army were crushed by us, and we have taken our seat on the throne of his kingdom. Now, therefore, let us establish friendship with one another, and give me now your daughter as my wife, and I will become your son-in-law, and will make gifts to you, to her, and to her, in keeping with your position. King Ptolemy replied and said, Happy was the day on which you returned to the land of your fathers and took your seat on the throne of their kingdom. And now what I will do as you wrote, but meet me at Ptolemais, so that we may see one another, and I will become your father-in-law, as you have said. So Ptolemy set out from Egypt, and he had Cleopatra his daughter, and came to Ptolemais in the 162nd year. King Alexander met him, and Ptolemy gave him Cleopatra his daughter in marriage. And he celebrated her and and celebrated her wedding at Ptolemais with great pomp, as kings do. Then King Alexander wrote to Jonathan to come meet him. So he went with pomp to Ptolemais and met the two kings. He gave them and their friends silver and gold and many gifts, and found favour with them. A group of pestilent men from Israel, lawless men, gathered together against him to accuse him, but the king paid no attention to them. The king gave orders to take off Jonathan's garments and clothe him in purple, and they did so. The king also seated him at his side and said to his officers, "Go forth with him into the middle of the city and proclaim that no one is to bring charges against him about any matter, and let no one annoy him for any reason." And when his accusers saw the honour that was